Okay, so I think we should start with the webinar. So once again, good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us today for the webinar, especially when the webinar is on the topic of how HR leaders are enabling businesses and employees alike in these challenging times. Just a note for all the attendees who have joined us on the YouTube link. We will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. You may type your questions using the chat window on the YouTube. Also, you can subscribe to our Creating Values channel to receive updates about the upcoming webinar. So let's start. Sure. So I welcome our esteemed speakers. They will be sharing with us some of the best practices followed at their respective organizations to deal with the current challenging times and preparedness for future. As you can see, our speakers are from varied industries, thus the insights shared would provide us all with clear takeaways. The session will commence with some thoughts shared by Mr. Anshul Dureja, who is the MD and CEO of Creating Values. He's a known speaker at multiple forums, seminars, and events. He's also a happiness coach, a much needed trait in current times. The next session will be led by Mr. Ashish Srivastava, who's VP HR from Relaxo Footwears Limited. He will talk about their practices for employee well-being and continuous learning. Relaxo Footwears is a leading footwear manufacturer of India, ensuring employee well-being and learning with a mix of white and blue-collared employees is a major responsibility handled by HR leaders in manufacturing setup. Our next session is about ensuring employee motivation and keeping them aligned with the goals. This session will be led by Flight Lieutenant Saras Malik, who heads HR and training for Artemis Hospitals. Artemis, as you all must be aware, is a leading healthcare provider. In current times, to ensure alignment and motivation for the front runners like doctors, nurses, other healthcare helpers are of utmost importance. So we have an opportunity to hear about the efforts made for the same. Then we will move to the next part led by Ms. Chetna Ogia, who heads HR for Policy Bazaar. Policy Bazaar is an Indian insurance aggregator and a global financial technology startup. With a workforce of more than 10,000, how is the company managing seamless working during this lockdown? The traffic of calls and services sought from Policy Bazaar certainly is at peak currently. I'm sure the attendees will also be interested in hearing about the preparedness of organizations to resume operations post the lockdown. Here our speaker, Mr. Rajiv Kapoor from Minda Industries, will share some pointers. He not only leads the HR function at Uno Minda, but also is the executive director and CEO there. Uno Minda is a known name in the automotive industry. Operations may have to be soon resumed. So what are the steps taken to manage production while keeping the pandemic at bay? So I now request Mr. Anshul Dureja to initiate the discussion and to start with his section.
Thank you, Sujata. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to be present in this virtual town hall and probably for the next 60 to 75 minutes discuss and ponder over some of the pieces these great stalwarts from various different organizations across the broad spectrum of India's industries are currently working on. I think I would be personally delighted to listen to each one of them. So Sujata told me that, okay, why don't Anshul you start with something of your own thoughts? So I said, okay, let me share some of my perspectives, which I feel being a part of this exciting journey. I say it's exciting because at the end of the day, despite the challenges, I think it also gives us a huge amount of opportunities and inherently gives us a lot of pieces to realign ourselves as people, as professionals, as leaders, and as various organizations. So I would be briefly talking about three different aspects today. It's a single slider piece. First one is in terms of the challenges. Everybody knows about the health challenges we all are facing, the challenges to our lives, to our loved ones' lives, to the ecosystem at large in the entire country and the world. So I would skip myself because today's webinar is all about the people and the organization. So I would restrict myself to the challenges as the organization-centered challenges which I see. So it's totally up to how I see. I think broadly, I've divided it into some pieces. First is there would be a lot of challenges in terms of the business. It's yet to be a certain how much it would be, but I think the major brunt of it would be borne by the MSMEs. So MSMEs, whether it's you call it as a manufacturing MSMEs or you call it as a services as MSMEs, there would be a huge amount of challenges in terms of how do you get business as usual. I think that would be a much huge impact, which it as of now could be predicted easily. Because of that, I think there would also be supply chain issues. I'm sure when Rajiv, who heads the HR at Huno Minda, he would be talking about the supply chain issues because just like example, a large organization of a auto cannot really work without an effective supply chain. So the entire industry might have repercussions. So supply chain is something which we cannot negate. Then the second, I think, would be that there would be too much of a focus in terms of the profit margins to be restored. How they would be impacted? They would certainly be impacted if the revenues are getting impacted. But yes, with all the new norms of how we would be working in the future, I think it's totally unknown. But one thing could be easily predicted is that there would be too much of a profit margin issues. The third would be in terms of the blue collar workforce. For me, I would say currently the blue collar workforce in India is divided into three broad territories. One is the ones which are very near to their offices, to their homes. One is near that is one category. The second category would be in terms of who have already migrated to their villages into the rural India. And the third would be who have started from their hometowns but not yet reached to their destination. So they are somewhere stuck in between. So the challenge for the industry is mainly the manufacturing industries would be that how do they really manage the blue collar workforce which has get scattered all across. Some three more challenges I would say. Job security concerns would certainly plague employees to a large extent. Uh, we we would not see too much of a white collar job security issues, but probably blue collar majority of the bulk, more than 60% is into the unorganized sector. I would say that is where I think there would be some challenges, but of course, white collar would be insulated to a great extent, if not 100%, but yes, to a great extent. Uh, I feel it's my personal piece that pay cuts may become the norm. Of course, in this year, we are not talking about appraisals. Fairly large organizations have already talked about it. I think it pay cuts. The more the lockdown extends, I think the pay cuts might become a norm. Uh, Last but not the least, I would say there would be a good amount of uncertainty which would contribute to anxiety levels. This has been something which has just started it. Uh, as we came near to the end to the lockdown one, that was very visible. I think as we enter into the midstream of the lockdown 2.0, I think it would eventually become much more. So it's a challenge, I would say, as of now, productivity, how do you work effectively? I think that would continue to be the focus area for HR professionals. But along with that, how do you really cope up and align the mental health of your employees? I think that would also become a huge pieces. Uh, I have been bombarded with a lot of calls. I have been speaking to a lot of people. I have been receiving calls. I think, and somewhere down the line, I think it's not very clear, but I've been able to see that some organizations have been reporting a huge amount of workload wherein the employees are too much of a burden. I think I believe that as we used to discuss work-life balance 3 months back from now, I think we also need to balance work from home and work off home. I think that WH and WX paradigm also needs to go together in terms of assuring the employees, assuring the people at large that yes, we are over there. So mental, I would say the psychological impacts also needs to be foreseen by the HR heads and the HR community at large. So I think these would be the challenges which we have been seeing or would be about to see. In terms of as I move towards the opportunities, I think there would be great opportunities as well. So it won't only be gloomy scenario, I think there would be some level of a boom also we would see. And probably as we cover up, probably let's take a best case scenario of the lockdown doesn't exist more than lockdown 2.0, 3.0. The economy is going to take another 1 or 2 quarters to bounce back. So over the period of, as we come to the near to the end of 2020, I would say it would be a 90-degree spiral which the economy would see. RBI governor just today said we would see a sharp V curve as we enter into 21. So I think that is certainly would be the eventuality. The second opportunity, I think, which gets lied is that there would be too much of a talent available. So the pool availability with organizations would be huge. So that would be something which really could be useful for organizations who are still willing to invest, who are willing to go for the kill. I think that talent would be very, very easily available. The third aspect would be that we cannot discount the factor that a lot of organizations across US of Americas and Europe and Japan and all the, I would say, organizations which have invested heavily in China, they would start rethinking their strategy of how can they get out of China and probably invest in countries like India. I think, of course, the red tapeism and the level of the I would say barricades we have as a political system and the bureaucratic system. I think the government is already wary of that, and probably I think they are also easing up, and they would also ease up going forward some of this. So we would see a lot of positivity coming out from the China factor as the organization try to invest in India. Though it would take certainly anything between a year or 2 years to see the real benefit, but yes, it would really mean a good amount of investment being flowing into India, which would eventually lead to jobs and also new opportunities, new markets getting opened up. The second piece is in terms of the HR, we would see a good amount of uptick in terms of outsourcing of non-core functions. So probably the organization and the CHROs, the HR leaderships, along with the management leaderships, would be considering with heavy focus in terms of why not we outsource our non-core functions like payroll, onboarding, HR ops, and we would see a lot of consolidation in terms of HR shared services. Companies which are running into disparate locations, demographically spread. So we would see a lot of pieces in terms of consolidation, a lot of efforts being made around that area. One of something which I am predicting, and probably you will not find it on Google because we just created it, is something which I deeply believe in, that organizations would be really forced to rethink their strategy on hiring. CFOs, when they would be getting pressed on how do they manage their cash reserves to fill out their own fixed components of their, I would say, expenses, they would be really pushing the HR heads to really think on do we really need people who do hiring for us? I think the TA, which we do internally as organizations, and probably the HR VP. So even if you say HR VP, probably if I have liberty to do a poll with all of you today who are watching this webinar, 90% of you would tell me easily, and that's my belief. I may be wrong, but probably I think more than 80-90% of you would tell me that our HR VPs do more of talent acquisition role rather than a HR VP role. So I think there would be a lot of pressure, financial pressure, which would come to HR heads in terms of managing your expenses, your fixed cost, your manpower. So we would be probably seeing the industry moving towards hiring as a service. So why not we have these recruitment consultants come on board, be responsible for all the hiring? So these would be some of the trends. It's too early to predict, but I think these would be some of the trends which may come in as the financial prowess of the organizations to spend really get, I would say, worried on. So these would be, I think, one of the pieces. In terms of the actionables, I would say 4 actionables. I would say a couple of them are just about to be visible to you. The first is in terms of complement hope with actions. So one is once the HR fraternity gives hopes to people, everything is good, great. But I think it should be backed with actions. It's not about the HR people and the HR professionals. It should be also about the innovation to be done at the organization level. Your how do you do your product selling? How do you do your sales selling? I would say your services. How can you make your business digital? I think this is the best time organizations can have to move their entire processes go digital. digital is going to be the future. I think how seamlessly we are able to communicate today with a larger audience right now, even on YouTube, without even, I would say, sitting across the luxury of sitting across anyone. I would say it's a fantastic piece of activity. I think organization really need to innovate a lot. How do you do your business realignments? Everything would be seen with a lot of pieces. Uh, Second is in terms of communicate clearly to assure it. uh, I'm sure all of you or most of you would have already done that in terms of communicate. But yes, as the lockdown stretches, the key component would be that at every lockdown stage, every no lockdown is going to be beyond 2 or 3 weeks at least, which is visible. So I think the best strategy for all HR folks should be in terms of as it comes to near to the end or probably in the middle or at the start, at least the HR folks should have a internal dialogue or communication. If it comes from the management, fantastic. That level of a communication should really keep on going. My third level of pieces is in terms of PMS. In terms of the PMS, I would say there are one simple piece. It's a very debatable piece. Lots of people would tell me, Anshul, probably this is not the right time to do the PMS when you yourself are talking about that no pay rise or something like that. But I mean by PMS, I mean the assessments, not the appraisals. And that's something I think it's always the mistaken PMS as appraisal. I think PMS is all about assessment. If I do a poll again, sorry, I'm taking too much of a name of a poll, but probably you all would agree with me that the managers, the reporting managers, appraisers, or reviewers generally don't do quality time spent with their reportees, with their FLRs. That never happens. Seldom happens, I would say. I won't say never, but that seldom happens. This is the best time to initiate PMS assessments. Go for it. I would say that's my take. Everybody is at home. The managers can easily do one-on-one sessions through technologies like Zoom, like YouTube, like WebEx, any internal application, external application you are using in your organization. Spend time on one-on-ones. This is the best time to get a PMS assessment done. Fourth and final, I would say, indulge in an employee outreach program. By employee outreach program, I would say not only restricted to your communication strategy, but also have a far more effective strategy. We are currently working with a couple of organizations currently who were ahead of the curve. I would say there are very few organizations who are ahead of the curve to foresee that probably the lockdown would extend to 2.5, 3 months, that sort of a piece. So we are currently working with them, and there could be a number of pieces it could be done in terms of employee outreach. So it doesn't get restricted in terms of your emailers or your email communication. You can build a lot of, I would say, e-newsletters. You could build a lot of, I would say, service could be easily built on. The more you stretch, the lockdown stretches, you would be forced to think of how do I keep my people really engaged and motivated. You have to keep your employees assured everything is going on perfectly fine and they are part of the system. I think that is the key assurance which you have to keep in mind. This was my last point, and I think my fellow speaker Ashish has to leave, so I would be wrapping up my point over here. Over to you, Sujata, so you can give it back to Ashish.
So, Mr. Ashish, I would request you to initiate your part of the discussion, and we are putting up the presentation for you.
Thanks, Sujata. Thanks, Anshul, for such insightful, points that you have made. A lot of them sound to be very, 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 very good and reasonably, very, very nearby in a nearby future, very actionable. I am not able to see the points, Sujata. If you can please show the slide. Yeah. So what I've done is I have to cover, what are we doing in terms of the employee well-being and their learning. So what we are doing is in terms of well-being, we started with massive awareness campaigns across the whole organization, wherein we told people how to sanitize themselves, how to regularly use sanitizers, how to wash hands even within the office or outside the office. But more so important is now the fact is because the coronavirus has spread, when we restart, we are planning to have massive campaigns amassed with posters and mailers and everything, safety committees have been formed, wherein each safety committee is taking care of a particular aspect of the safety, health, and wellness of the employees. And every committee has been given a different task. Like one committee is tasked with creating mailers and communication program. One of the safety committees has been tasked with actually finding vendors for us who will be able to give us a specialized tools and things. I'll just give an example of a very simple thing that right now we are in we are searching for a supplier which can give us elbow operated sanitizer dispenser rather than thumb operated. So something very simple. So safety committees have been formed which are doing a lot of things and getting this done. One of the safety committee is actually in talks with the maintenance department, engineering department of the company, and getting a lot of things developed in house, a lot of tools developed in house. Then we have made HRBPs and the plant PNA managers and the plant PNA managers as the SPOC. Anything, even right now, also if someone faces any problem related to health or wellness, they can contact the SPOC, and the query will be routed to a particular person, and that person has been tasked and has been authorized to support the employees. So that is what we have done. We are doing in terms of the awareness campaign. Next point, please. In terms of working conditions, even if you have, all of you would have seen the Ministry of Home Affairs, order dated 15th of April, which came one day after the announcement of extension of this lockdown by our PM. They have described social distancing even on the shop floor. There will be a 6-foot difference on the shop floor. Now, even before this order had come out, we had been planning about restarting the work, because when you increase this distance on the shop floor, how will you manage the line? How will you manage the productivity? How will you manage the production? Because then practically the number of workers will be halved. How are you going to cater to the production requirements? So keeping the social distancing in place. So we are working on that. And whenever we start, probably we'll have staggered working in HO in our head office, which means half of the employees will come, half of the employees will work from home one day, and alternatively then they will rotate. So therefore we'll reduce the gathering of people en masse in even the offices. Right now also a lot of our employees are staying in plants, because plants cannot be left alone like this. We have got boilers, we have got utilities, people have to actually maintain. So what we thought, if they go in and out of the plant every day, there's a lot of probability that they will catch something. So we have actually made their accommodation in house, and the employees have been staying there. We have made their accommodation for their stay, for lodging, for boarding. Even the canteen employees are there, which are providing them food. My security staff, everyone is there, and we have provided them accommodation inside the factory premises. Even in our HO, we have done that. Whenever we start, we have got a lot of schedules for sanitation of buses, machines, and common areas. We'll provide the PPEs to all the workmen. We'll have revised canteen management norms, revised washroom, something as mundane as people going to the water cooler and having and asking water to drink, because then there will be, again, there is a probability of mass gathering. So we'll be actually avoiding them. We are planning to give them bottled water. There's a lot of expense which is there, but the company is ready to do that to avoid gathering of people. Then in terms of visitor management, we have put in place very strict policies on visitor entry. Even the Relaxo employees who will be visiting our plants, or even the plant employees who will be visiting our HOs, will be actually discouraged. Until unless it is very highly important and urgent, these visits will not be allowed, and which therefore underlies the importance of not letting any outside person, other than the Relaxo employees, visiting us in any of our premises. We are also framing very strict guidelines for entertaining our customers in our retail stores. We have got more than 350 retail stores across India. Now, when our customers come there, the customers now the social norm of the whole country is going to change. You know, we'll be becoming much more, you know, hygiene savvy, which will become much more, you know, aware of the hygienic conditions around us. So the customer which will be visiting will be very choosy about the shop that he or she will be visiting. So therefore, we are framing a lot of strict guidelines as to how will we entertain customers, what are the sanitation which will happen, what is the temperature checking which will happen and happen before the customer enters the floor. You know, a lot of guidelines and lot of tools are being given to our retail outlet managers to tackle the situation. Then next point, please. Then in terms of learning, as Anshu was saying, yes, even before TNI, our training need identification is in process, and which is actually inbuilt as a process of PMS. Anshu, you're so right. We are getting our PMS done, and which means that we will do the performance feedback exercise, we'll do performance assessment, we'll do the performance coaching and feedback, and we'll also do the normalization exercise. We'll do the whole entire gamut. I mean, irrespective of the fact whether we give salary review or not. It is a misnomer that, you know, appraisal is done for the salary exercise. Appraisal is done for, you know, career planning, for, you know, career movement, a lot many things. Salary review is just for salary review is just an input, nothing else. So we are getting the PMS done. As part of the PMS, TNI is in process as we are speaking. And once the TNI happens, as part of the regular exercise of our every year, we'll have training courses scheduled for our employees. But even before that it happens, we are using a lot of online modules for our sales employees. Our sales employees are spread across India. A lot of videos, a lot of online modules have been rolled out, be it our SAP SuccessFactors that we have deployed, or be it on any other platforms. Our training guys are working day and night along with the sales employees to disseminate a lot of competency upliftment programs, because this is right now, this is the good time, because otherwise sales employees are always busy. You know, I mean, this has come as a boon for us that we are getting now time from even the sales employees. So we are getting it done. We, for others also, within a week or so, we are searching for a lot of e-learning modules for our other employees, and we'll get it done. For our retail sector employees, we have already framed out the retail training calendar, retail training program, and which has been rolled out. And from the next week onwards, trainings will start for our retail sector employees. So a lot of action is happening in terms of learning. However, as we go ahead, a lot of thrust will be on e-learning, because, you know, gone are the days when we will be able to call a trainer and do a traditional learning exercise, for two reasons. One, for cost cutting. Yes, we'll have to be very sensitive about the cost, and e-learning modules are very cost friendly. The other thing is, we would not want our employees to be gathering in one place for near future. So therefore, there will be a lot of thrust on e-learning rather than, face-to-face physical learning programs that we used to have. So that's from our side. A lot work is being done in terms of managing the whole scenario post Corona, and getting and giving that comfort to our employees that it is safe to come and work for us. Because believe me or not, a lot many workers have migrated, and you will have to actually pay premium to workers to come to the shop floor, because all the workers have gone to their villages. Right now is the harvesting time. In June, there will be sowing time. As such, in April, May, June, we used to give a lot of incentives to our worker to lure them to our shop floor. Now with the workers gone, it will be very difficult to find the worker, and all the factories nearby will be vying for the same talent. Now the worker will also become a talent actually. And therefore we are looking at a lot of possibility of actually giving something extra to the worker to lure them to our shop floor. So a lot of things are getting done. So that's all from my side. Thank you. Any questions? I will be able to take it right now or end.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srivastav, and thank you. We understand that you already have a management level meeting aligned, and despite that, you made time to come here and share your views with us. So thank you so much for that. And you rightly mentioned it could be any given time as challenging times as these, but employee well-being and learnings should never be put on a back pedal. They should always be in the main agenda for HR to run the show right from front. So thank you so much for sharing your views and some of the practices that are being followed and will be followed at Relaxo Footwears for the same. Thank you so much. So the next section, thank you. And so the next section would be led by Flight Lieutenant Saras Malik. She'll be talking about the best practices which are being followed at Artemis hospitals to ensure alignment and motivation of people during these difficult times. So over to you, Saras ma'am, and we would love to hear your views on this.
A very good evening to all the participants and organizers of this wonderful webinar. Thank you, Anshul, for your insights, and thank you, Sujata, for the introduction. I would also like to thank all the August company of current and future leaders of HR and strategists who have taken out time to be with us today. Human Resources Department is entrusted with a very delicate and important role of enabling organizations and employees alike. All of us are treading on this very, very delicate path. Today, I would like to take you through some of the best practices that Artemis Hospital has adopted for alignment and motivation of our employees. Artemis, being a hospital, is dealing with lives and livelihoods. We have a dedicated team of frontliners fighting a brave battle against novel corona with grit and determination. This wouldn't have been possible without the constant direct communication between our leadership, especially our Managing Director, Dr. Devleena Chakravarti, and our medical services team, and the team of our highly motivated doctors, nurses, paramedical staff, housekeeping, F&B, security staff, general duty attendants, who are working apart from the whole hospital, especially in the COVID area. They are driving ownership, and we maintain complete transparency while sharing information with them. Secondly, listening to the voices. Voice is extremely crucial. Voices could be negative, positive, suggestions. Negative, like fear psychosis. Being fearful of such a situation is absolutely normal. To allay that fear is extremely important and a major responsibility on the part of the management. We do so by leading by example. Even the senior-most doctors from emergency medicine and critical care departments are performing duties in COVID unit. This is highly motivating for the subordinate staff. Apart from this, we take support of our in-house clinical psychologist and psychiatrist in certain specific cases where such a need is felt. Positive voices like the staff is really happy with the availability of personal protective equipment, PPE, in sufficient quantity for their use. This gives them the confidence and trust that their safety is of paramount importance in the minds of the management. The safety of healthcare worker even takes priority over the safety of our patient. All the suggestions from the employees are acknowledged and brainstormed for implementation. It helps them being gainfully engaged and be aware rather than being uncertain. We are also taking responsibility of the financial, psychological, social safety and wellness of our staff. Our management has decided that there would be no layoffs. The medical needs are taken care of through medical insurance. The duty roster has been such that after 1 week of duty in the COVID ward, the staff gets 2 weeks off to cater to the quarantine period requirements. Any staff member who wishes to stay put in the hospital premises is allowed to do so. The reasons could be many: presence of small kids at home, presence of elderly at home, pressure of the neighbors, pressure of their landlord. They cannot go back home, so they are taken care of. Their boarding, lodging is well taken care of by the hospital. Pick and drop is provided to staff who need this support in the light of national lockdown and public transportation being affected completely. From Human Resources Department, we keep sending regular mailers, giving tips of do's and don'ts to keep our employees safe. Social distancing norms are religiously followed even in our staff cafeteria. All the staff entry points are equipped with infrared thermometer for checking temperature before entering the premises. Hand hygiene, sanitizers and masks are readily available. Each and every person coming to the premises, be it staff, any patient, their attendants, or even vendors, they have to be wearing masks. It is very important. Some more small actions that we're doing, but very important ones are like one attendant only is allowed to stay with the indoor patient. There are no visitations permitted during this period till the curve flattens. There is a separate screening room, passage, and lift to transport the patient who's suspected of COVID from emergency to the COVID ward. This is to ensure complete safety to our other patients and our own staff. We must be having contingency management at all our organizations. However, now is the time to update those. We've also had a mention of outbreak of an epidemic or pandemic in our disaster management SOPs, but the frequency of occurrence was assumed and presumed to be very low or rare. However, now from the learnings gained from the first-hand experience, we need to amend these and update them to be able to absolutely ready for a similar scenario in future, God forbid. The document should focus on resilience to be up and about in the shortest possible time. As was brought out by my colleague, Mr. Ashish earlier, improvising on technical support is very important. Currently, we do have two apps, one for the patient and one for the doctors, which allows both of them to access information at Artemis Hospital 24/7. From our online system, one can find a doctor, request for an outpatient appointment, access medical information, request for an imaging appointment. But now we have further improvised, and now the patients can even request for e-consultation. They don't need to visit the hospital to seek consultation. They can do so with the help of technology, sitting in the comfort of their homes. And of course, how can we forget the importance of trainings, learnings, and development needs? Trainings have not ceased to happen. Earlier, we had a hybrid model with a mix of classroom and online trainings. But keeping the need of the hour in focus, all the trainings are now converted to online model. Apart from this, our infection control team is taking an active lead in making staff and attendants aware about the measures like hand hygiene, social distancing, correct way of wearing a face mask, coughing and sneezing etiquettes in public, thus helping the prevention of the disease and making everybody aware about keeping them safe. Virtual meets and video conferencing have replaced real meetings like the one we're having now. Communication is the key, and to ensure that there is no breakdown in communication, since most of the back-end staff is working from home, virtual meetings have replaced the real meetings, where people share information and data in real time without being physically located together. Similarly, online contests for employees keep them engaged and in touch with each other. Good online reads are shared with each other. Team meetings are also conducted on the model of virtual meeting. Hence, technology is definitely coming to our rescue and is playing a very important role in keeping the morale of the employees high during such trying times. With this, I wrap up my session. Once again, I thank you for providing me this opportunity to share my thoughts and the best practices opted by Artemis Hospital to win this war against the deadly novel coronavirus. Though social distancing separates us, we all stand united and resolute to cure and endure. Thank you so much. Wish you all safety and best of health for you and your dear ones. Thank you so much. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Saras ma'am. Actually, we'll be taking up all the questions towards the end of the session. So at that time, I'll read out the questions that the participants are sharing, and then obviously whichever speaker wants to take it up, it'll be great to hear your views again on it.
Thank you so much.
And, rightly said, Saras ma'am, and we salute the valor of all the healthcare professionals who are working currently. In current times, it's not about the army, navy, or every other armed forces that we can talk about, but it is the healthcare providers who are at the forefront of this battle. So a salute to all of you, and thank you so much for sharing your the practices followed at Artemis for the same. We will now move to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Chetna Gogia, who heads HR department for Policy Bazaar. And with Ms. Chetna, we actually want to hear about how are they managing seamless working in these times when the requirement for insurance has really gone up. And I'm sure with a workforce of 10,000 plus, managing seamless operations would have been a challenge, but I'm sure they are doing a fantastic job at it. So over to Ms. Chetna.
Thanks, Sujata, for a quick introduction. And first of all, would really like to thank Sujata and Anshul, both of you, for organizing such an amazing session. And I think while I'll be sharing about the practices, in the insurance sector, as well as what Policy Bazaar as an organization doing, was quite, it was quite insightful to know what Mrs. Malik and Ashish really talked about, and how their industries are working towards different things. But as I start with the, how the best practices, we are using, and how the work for Policy Bazaar is working. Just to start with, as you said that, yes, we have quite a huge workforce of 10,000. Actually, we have a workforce of more than 12,000 employees, in which 10,000 are almost our call center or people, and which is quite a huge workforce to work with when it comes to call center. It is more calibrated offline, and they are mostly working on the desktops. So at the first place, I think that was something which was the biggest challenge for us to understand how do we continue to support our customer service, because of course we are customer led organization. So that was one of our biggest challenge. And I think as we got to know that this is something we need to get into, we started to prepare for the situation. And we understood that only thing which would help us to go remote working would be the technology. So with 10,000 plus customer facing sales people, it was quite an unimaginable task. So the first thing which we actually did on making it sure that they all are 100% working from home, we first went on our virtual operators and made those virtual operators into a proper app, so that we can remotely work anywhere. On time, we could order proper tabs and the laptops and everything, the machines where we can really let people work from anywhere, not just from the desktop, really helped us to go 100% work from home. And at the same time, I think what worked from the IT department also was that how employees can have VPN access, the cloud access, so that they can work out of their machines anywhere, just away from the office as well. But the most important thing when I talk about work from home and calibration using the technology, we realized sometimes it's not just technology, but it is also very important that how you coordinate and what is the motivation level you create for people who are working from home, supporting you, even more than 8 hours, 9 hours, and looking at insurance as a sector where, of course, we have started to get even more leads than how it was. And especially this is a time when it is the peak season as well for insurance. So it was very important for us to keep our people motivated as well, and creating a discipline to ensure that when people are home, they are giving the right support and the service to all our customers, whatever they are getting. On the next point, as you talk about the security, for every organization, when it comes to working remotely, security becomes a very major concern, and adding a layer of complexity to the technology side of a remote working has quite major serious consequences as well. In particular, when employees are not aware of safe practices, are switched to unauthorized tools to get their work done. So doing it right requires employees the tools that they need to be productive while managing data, security is in place. We implemented a set of mechanism to establish a culture which is very confidential in nature. At the same time, we mandated, just to ensure that how seriously employees take it, we mandated certain awareness trainings for everyone, and we ensured that everybody go through those security trainings and understand that how important it is for them to keep the security breach in mind, and should not be very quite casual about the approach. Third, very important for us, for insurance sector and for Policy Bazaar again, is the kind of products which keeps getting created by the insurers, and especially at the time of this situation, there were many insurers who came up with different insurances, different offerings and products, which was very important for us to make our agents learn through a digital content. And that's exactly, I think, both Ashish and Mrs. Malik both, I think, covered in their part how they created the e-learning tools, and how through digital content they continue to do the delivery of certain learning. Similarly, in our case also, we created a lot of digital content. We did some online training through Hangouts, and we created some small YouTube videos so that employees are quite updated about the product offerings, and they can actually serve the customer the right way, and they can guide them which policy right now they should be taking, and which should not would support them maybe in a long run. And just to give an example. So, and then I think next to this was the fourth point, where I wanted to really highlight about building communication channels were the most critical part when it comes to remote working. So, we ensured that, every manager or every employee is connected through certain one-to-one calls for their internal, catch-ups, as well as building certain relationships. This is a time when it is very important for any level employee to have relationship with their managers, team, and so on. So we formulated certain one-to-one calls. At the same time, we had short video conferencing calls created, where there was part of decision making, team talks, and some workshops and trainings were discussed, and we could really calibrate well through video. Then at the same time, at the management level and at certain levels where the decision making was very critical, we made certain WhatsApp groups, small chat groups, where we can take a quicker decision making. And we should not delay just because it would take time to chat on the emails, and certain things which are not easy when it comes to certain emails, and just exchanging some other notes. So just for quicker decision making, we even created certain groups and helped the top level management and people below to get the decisions faster. On the next message, on a very lighter note, but again very important for us, which we realized was that a connect of the CEO. So while we talked about the CEO connect, it was not just about that we sharing what's happening, but just beyond that giving a sense of social security. Also, we made sure that there's a message which has gone to every employee from the CEO desk, that their salaries for the coming months will be secure. And that is something I think which at least created some positivity and assurance to employees, that the company is taking care, and they will of course be taken care in going future, and they do not have to worry about what's happening outside. But of course, while we talk about the appraisals and how does it go forward, but at least the salaries which you're getting are quite secure, which really helped us to at least create that positivity amongst employees and the sense of security for sure. While I talked about these 5 points, which were more about seamless working during these course of time, somewhere we realized that we have to have a readiness, to resume operations, and post lockdown, certain things which we need, again to keep in mind, and the future looking of how we should go about. So, towards that, I would just be talking about two last points, how that is pertaining not to just the existing situation, but how I think in the coming months and for this year, how we need to prepare. So what, at least for the insurance sector, what we really realized is not just this situation or tomorrow, any other situation comes. The important thing is being digital. In insurance, as you know, you go for any policy, you have to go through proper medical checks, and everything is more physical. So actually with the insurers, we came up with the agreement that most of the medical checks now which are happening are through video calls and through phone calls. And you won't believe it, actually there's telemedical which is in place, where anybody going for any insurance policy, medical or something, they can go through the telemedical clearance, and the policy is issued to them. At the same side, we have come to a key stage of closing a policy and a credit facility without any physical test or any KYC for now, which again is something would be very important going forward in future as well. And we have even at Policy Bazaar developed a video-based inspection tool for which in which a car can also be there's a proper mechanism in which a car inspection can also happen over a video, and it can be issued, and for any insurance or any claims, it can just go through the video inspection, and it gets through. And that's something I think what I see would be very helpful for us for preparing for future as well, because I think India will surely move away from physical KYCs at one point in time for regular, and the situations are anything about the future, and that's exactly how I think for insurance sector also would be the future. Even today, we know that at certain point and certain level of insurers. And even our competitions are shut just because they never thought of something like this, and they are not even ready around any technology based apps, or anything which is more digital in nature. On the last point, I would really like to highlight something which we've been discussing and still the work is on, is about having a very clear and clear goal and a plan in place for not just 1 month or just few weeks, but it is about, we have split between 3 months, 6 months and 12 months. Understanding how the consumer behavior might change. What is the consumer behavior today? What would be the consumer behavior down the line, 6 months and 12 months? So that is something which would be worth spending a lot of time on, especially for the consumer-based companies, and setting up small cross-functional teams with certain clear objectives for the common goals. I think that would keep every one of us going and strategizing some of our work, which we would like to see in future and would like to have. So these are my broad 7 points about what Policy Bazaar at large is doing, and how insurance sector also would just move away from how it is to more digital in future, and the shift which we will see for sure. So I would really look forward some questions towards the end. But again, thank you so much, for inviting me, and good evening, and thanks to everyone who has joined in to attend the session as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chetna. Well, actually, it's such an interesting thing. Although the times are difficult, but there are several interesting patterns. Organizations which had a more traditional format of working, they are now digitalizing, several processes. And organizations such as Policy Bazaar, which already had a major, chunk of their business operating through the digital formats and digital platforms, they are talking about what next and what other formats can be digitalized in the coming times. So that's an interesting thing. And it goes to show how, how the beautiful marriage between HR and IT happening within all the organizations. And hoping for good times to come soon. And so now we will move to our next section, which is completely focused on readiness to resume operations post the lockdown. And for that, I would request Mr. Rajiv Kapoor to share his views, especially given, with an assumption that in coming few days itself, what if even a certain percentage of manufacturing operations are resumed, then what would happen on day 0 and going forward? So over to you, Mr. Rajiv. We would love to hear your views on it.
So good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. And thank you, Anshul, Sujata. This is wonderful, I think, the way you're conducting it. And also thanks to the participants for finding time to attend this. And also beautiful points, I think, given by speakers before me, lovely points. And I would just now talk from my perspective. It's the manufacturing sector we are talking about. And I represent the automotive sector, which is, I think, the worst hit as of now. We were already hit before Corona hit us, because I think last year also was a downturn as far as automotive sector is concerned. But this has further taken us down. So the major, I think, OEMs and of course the auto comp manufacturers are facing the brunt right now. So just to introduce, we are an auto comp manufacturing organization. We are about 62 years old as an organization. About 80 plants we have, 80 locations. So we have quite a spread of employees, types of employees, and we have about close to 29,000 employee force with us. Out of which about 4,500 are management staff people. So it's quite a spread we have. And Of course, nobody was envisaging or nobody was ready for this kind of a thing to happen. But one thing we realized when we had to, let's say, face the lockdown and start the work from home. And let me also share with you, manufacturing is quite away from work from home culture. So we are not at all even close to that. So we are hands-on kind of an operation. So, but when the work from home thing happened for us, we realized that we were actually very well prepared from a digital perspective. So our processes were already digitized. We had seamless digital operations happening. So luckily, we have not faced any issues. The entire staff is connected digitally on a day-to-day basis. So I was just taking a feedback from the IT head. So we have logged in since the lockdown, which is, let's say, 22nd of March. We have logged in 11,000 meetings on Microsoft Teams. And at any given point of time, 2,000 plus Minda staff members are online talking to each other and solving issues. So that's the kind of digital revolution we now realize the power of that. But we were already there. And I'm sure many other manufacturing setups have also taken that route. So this reminds me of a joke. I think it was somewhere in February when this thing was just starting up, this Corona thing and all, that let's reboot and reload the year 2020 because it has a virus. So it was in a lighter sense, but it is turning out to be a beta version, not the final version of the year 2020. So let's hope how this pans out for the entire population of the world. As of now, things are not very rosy. So coming to the point, I had sent about 5 points. First one being pressing the restart button. So people first agenda, of course, because this is primarily our focus on health and safety of our employees. So the speaker before me, Ashish, I think has very clearly mentioned about the protocols, which are now a part and parcel of everyday affair in a manufacturing setup. So we are also going to be following that. And in fact, like many other organizations, we also have come up with a manual, which will be a guide for opening up the plants. Now that takes care when the person leaves the house and enters back. So the entire day is mapped in that manual. Even if it's a, let's say, contract worker, stopping on the way to the office to fill air in his bicycle, and he's using a hand pump, that aspect also has been taken care into the SOP. That if he has filled up air using a hand pump, how do you make sure that he declares it and sanitizes his hands? That advice also is captured. So to that kind of a detail we have gone, and all SOPs are there. As we speak, all our plants are completely equipped with PPEs now, because government also has given mandates about distancing. I don't call it social distancing, I call it physical distancing, because socially I think we've come closer from the social networking perspective. It is more of a physical distancing we are talking about. So we are going to follow all the government norms, and the PPEs and everything else is already in place. So whenever the plants get an order to open up, maybe 21st, maybe on 4th of May, we are absolutely geared up. And not only us, I think every automotive sector company is completely geared up. And let me also acknowledge the fact that the OEMs are providing very nice leadership to all the automotive sector, the autocom sector, by keeping them engaged and telling them the practices they're following. So I don't use the word best practice here, because I think these are practices we are discovering as we go forward. So what will come out later, then we can maybe sift out some of the best practices, what succeeded, what didn't. So we are waiting for that. We will take time to reach that best practice level. Of course, somebody spoke earlier also. We are also, as of now, communicating very effectively with the entire staff membership and the employee force. Just to tell you, we are aware of the location of each staff member and each worker we have, each associate we have. We are aware where they are, and we are keeping a track, because when we restart the operation, we also know on first day how many people will report for duty and how many cannot, how many have to travel for 2 days or 3 days, who has gone back to their native place. We have all this information and every detail is available. So we are ready with that. Obviously, when the day zero happens, 4-5 days, there's not going to be any production. It's more of a preparedness. We have to get on with it because the plants have been shut for about a month now, more than a month. Restarting will take at least 1 week of machines getting to that state of readiness. Also, big challenge for us is going to be supply chain. So we are constantly in touch with our tier 2 suppliers, the suppliers in, let's say, sitting in other countries, whereas the materials are, we are constantly making sure that when we start, the supply chain is not a hindrance. It will be a big challenge. It will be not only for us, for everyone, because the transportation is a big part of supply chain. That's going to be a big challenge. So our team is dedicatedly working on managing the supply chain. And as of now, we are confident that we would be able to manage that very well. So on the health and safety, I will not spend much time because Ashish, I think, has enumerated very well the processes. What have been listed out, those are practically the processes which any organization will have when they restart. The only focus we are having primarily is on high level of communication. So every week there's a communication going from the chairman to everyone in the organization. Idea is to give them confidence that we are there, we are watching your backs, don't worry. We are a large family. So that communication helps us keep the people connected to the organization. Next was the new ways of working. Of course, new ways are developing, especially from a manufacturing setup perspective. It was a big change. Service sector, I've been a part of service sector. It is not much because you're not manufacturing, you are basically set up and you can operate from anywhere. But in a manufacturing setup, this was a big change for us because nobody's able to manufacture anything. While the staff is working, the operators are not able to work. So it's a big change. How does that happen? So we are now looking at new tools and technologies because we are also a design house. We also design components. We also engineer components. So how do we keep those designers occupied during this time? So that is the next phase we are looking at. We are developing a lot of components for the OEMs. So that is something which we are looking at right now. How do we move to the next level? We've been able to manage this during this lockdown, but then we have to move to the next level so that the work seamlessly continues as far as the designing softwares and everything is concerned. Because the challenge was when the lockdown was announced, there were designers who were working on their, let's say, desktops. When they reach home, there's no desktop, there's no laptop for them because the kind of softwares they use, they're licensed softwares. You cannot download them anywhere else. So a lot of copyright issues, a lot of other issues of design proprietariness and all those things were there. But we've been able to handle that, and currently we are working fine. So trust basically, I think, has come out as one big learning for all of us in manufacturing because we are used to not working from home. We're all physically there in the offices every day. Now, for the last almost a month, it's more of trust. So I see a lot of change in the trust index in the organization because people have to now learn to trust employees more and more. Not that we never trusted employees, but then this is a different ballgame altogether. Service sector understands this better, but manufacturing, it is something very new for us. So we are working on this, and I see a very, very positive change in the trust levels. And let me also share with you, the speed has improved. The speed of decision making has suddenly seen a jump. And let me share, the chairman was very happy. In fact, today morning only was commenting that I am seeing a tremendous jump in the output which is coming from even my senior team. So I think the network we have developed by not meeting each other, I think that has created a very different kind of a bond for, it's an offline bond kind of a thing, an online bond, you may say. So that's what has really helped the manufacturing sector. Another aspect which from an HR perspective we are talking about is managing resilience and mindfulness. How do you make sure that people who are coming back from their homes, how do you cater to them? And I'll club the next point also. how do you bring confidence back in these people? Because there's a lot of fear around, a lot of fake news going on, and people do a lot of fear mongering. So how do you make sure that the employees get the right information, and we as an organization are able to give that confidence to them? So that is where the HR department comes to the front, and we are now looking at, as we speak, we are looking at some of the policies, because we were not prepared for this kind of a lockdown, that this can happen. In the wildest dreams, I think our policy manuals never cater to these kind of things. Obviously, the commercial aspects do take care of a force majeure, but in a policy manuals, we never had these kind of things. So these are something new which we are discovering, and the expectation of people we have captured. Somebody mentioned the listening skills. I think we are picking up the voice of the employees, since we are connected on a daily basis, and we are trying to now make SOPs and policies to that. We are trying to take that into account. Obviously, when people come in from their home districts back to the job, they would still have fear on their mind. They would have left their families again behind. So as HR, as an organization, I think we need to be very mindful of that. We need to give them that kind of a work platform. We should give them that kind of a freedom to connect with whoever they want to do, so that they understand that we are back in the family, but there's a family outside also have to take care. So we are one large family. So that's the sense we are trying to create through our HR network. We must also be empathetic towards that, because it's not an issue created by anyone. It is an issue which we are all facing together. So be it an organization, be it an individual, so we all have to respect that, and we must be mindful of that aspect. So one mantra which we are following is the communication. So we are over communicating. We are ensuring that whatever messaging happens, whatever SOPs are launched, whatever news we want to share, reaches to the last man standing. And that is what we are ensuring. And that really helps, because people all hear the same thing. There are no Chinese whispers here and there. So everybody gets the right thing happening. Somebody talked about the economic impact of this entire thing. Of course, when the organizations don't get revenue for 2 to 3, or maybe now could be 4 to 5 months, there will be an impact on, let's say, employee salaries and all. So we hope it doesn't happen, but then of course there is a limitation of the cash flow in any organization. So I'm not talking about our organization. It is a matter being discussed in every organization. What will happen? So I think from an HR perspective, our priority is not to lay off people. So we will give more importance to pay loss over job loss. So I think because pay loss can be made good once the situation is back to normal, but a job loss is damaging. So that is what we are going to focus upon. So pay loss versus job loss. So we also expect that we should not go for a pay loss also, but then that is something which is beyond our hands, because that's what the economy drives, and we have to sustain the organization also. So another aspect which we are looking at is when I speak about the fear factor in the minds of the people, a lot of uncertainty. Kya hoga? Nobody knows. Even we don't know. Lockdown is getting extended every 2 weeks. It's getting extended, so we don't know. So some people say that this is going to last till somewhere till September before you start seeing some green shoots coming back. So that's a pretty long time. And some are even saying October. So we don't know. So we'll have to see till when this lasts. And it is not going to go away so soon. This impact is going to last. It will last for almost 2 to 3 years before you see normalcy returning. So we have to be, as an organization, be very resilient and mindful of what we are doing. And people, like we always say, are our most valued assets. So from an HR perspective, we are championing their cause. We will continue to champion the cause and make sure that whatever decisions have to be taken have to be balanced decisions. And the communication has to be very effective so that everybody understands in the same manner. So opening up, I think people are eagerly looking forward to that. In fact, when we talk to them daily, so everybody is very eager to come back to the job, because it was a nice thing to hear about work from home. Yeah, work from home acha hota hai. But let me tell you, work from home acha tab hota hai when only you are working from home. But when everybody is working from home, it is not a very nice thing, because then everybody is in the same boat. So you are also in the same pressure system. So people are now saying, sir, वैसे ही है, we start our day at 8:30 and finish at 6:30. So what's the change? So there's no change. So everybody's working hard. And but the good part is we are able to work. We are all able to connect with each other. We are able to deliver. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, our delivery has become better. So we are now trying to find out, can we make this a bit of a norm in the organization, pandemic or no pandemic, but manufacturing, can we look at work from home on some occasions and give this kind of a leeway to the employees? So it's a new learning for us. So once we open up, I think we are making a compendium of what have we learned and what did we do right in this this pandemic. What can we improve upon? So from an HR perspective, we are actually making a compendium of all these ideas. And once we hit normalcy, we will make sure that we become much more responsible as an organization from a people's perspective. And while we have done well, we are doing very well on the social front also, the CSR front, we are doing a lot. And I'll not give you the details, but we are actually doing a lot of stuff on the CSR front. So how can we be now more ready? Because when you talk about the migrant people, we have a lot of migrant people staying in villages. So our people have actually gone to the landlords, requested them not to check them out because they can't, they have to go back. They are not wanting to keep outsiders in the village. A lot of issues are there. So we face these kind of things, and through our network, we've been able to handle. So we are very proud of the team which we have, which has handled all these things. So I'm sure now, any day when the reset button happens and we have to restart, we, not only us, I think many organizations, because we are in touch with most of them, are absolutely ready to restart the operations. Obviously, it will be it will take off in a week's time. It may be taking a month in some of the organizations, but then of course, the readiness factor is there. The new learnings, I think people have very quickly bought the PPEs. They bought all the disinfectant tunnels. You would have heard everybody is talking about the tunnels. Some people are already implementing that. So now buses are in shortage. Let me also share that with you, because the transport norms are that only half the people can sit in the bus. Not every seat can be occupied. So the number of buses are suddenly in demand when the plants open up, because transportation of workers, how do you make sure that they come? So, and then how do you make those people stay inside the plants? Because the regulations also say that if you're not in a green zone, then you have to ensure that the people are staying inside the plant. So how do you make sure that happens? So like the Relaxo HR head also mentioned, we also have, as of now, 68 ERTs spending time in the plant right from 22nd March. They are there. So they're literally living inside the facilities because they have to take care of the facility. So those are emergency response teams to take care of any safety matters of the plant and make sure that the machines and everything are switched on, switched off, because otherwise the machines go bad. So we also have a very engaging program for them also. We engage them over yoga sessions every morning. We engage them on some quiz competition, which can be played through your mobile apps, so that the emergency response teams who have been in the same location from 22nd March, they haven't gone out, so they keep engaged. So plenty of challenges, I think. And I think when we talk to our HR teams, the learnings which they have taken during this pandemic, I think that's a massive amount of learning. We never wanted this to happen. Nobody wants this to happen. But then now, since it's happened, there is a tremendous learning which we have got from there. And now I think we are all much sobered down from the pure point HR, the HR poster kind of discussions. We are now coming down to the grassroots. People are now back completely into focus, right from the contract employee to the CMD. Everybody has been through this entire thing. So HR is leading this from the front, making sure that we do the right thing. If it ever happens again, we should be absolutely ready with that. So these were some thoughts which I had, I wanted to share. So over to you, and thank you once again for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions which you might have.
Just to add, Rajiv, I think it won't be a bad idea if we pass on this as a message to the governments of the day to observe a enforceable lockdown post Diwali for a week or two weeks after, we would be at least get rid of the pollution which affects the Delhi and the NCR areas.
So it is clearly showing that human beings are not actually essential on earth. Nobody needs them. In fact, just to share, we've got a puppies on the road, and these puppies were born during the lockdown.
Yeah.
So now the roads are absolutely empty in front of our house. So these puppies are going to grow up feeling that this is how the world is. There are no cars going anywhere. So they own that road. So when the traffic hits back, they're going to get a shock of their life.
They don't know what is going to hit them once the lockdown comes
absolutely.
back.
Absolutely.
Sujata, over to you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv, for sharing your views as well as the practices that are being followed. And you rightly mentioned, sir, it's the first time that, the people agenda is on the forefront. It's no longer on the back burner. It is right in upfront. It's funny now when I think about, my MBA days. I remember writing thesis over, the PESTEL framework, the political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal framework, the factors that might impact an organization or a business or an industry at large. And it's weird that one pandemic has actually brought every industry within the PESTEL framework, and it has shown that how everything gets impacted and how every aspect of PESTEL has to have an emergency response, the team ready to do it. So thank you so much for that. And now we'll be moving to the questions. So I'll be sharing the questions one by one. Some questions are directed towards a specific speaker. Some might be open-ended. So I would request the speakers, as per your comfort or as per your suggestions, to please jump in and give an answer. Even if a question might be directed to a specific speaker, if someone else wants to join in and add their points, please feel free to do so. So let me start with a question like, this question we've got from one of our, clients who is in the BFSI sector, and the head HR of the organization asks, organizations which are big in size and have good number of resources at hand can afford to make investments. How can developing organizations fight this situation? So maybe Ms. Chetna, if you want to start with it, and then any other speaker, if they want to jump in and add.
Sujata, you are breaking in between
What
actually.
suggestion, what advice would you? Okay, so am I audible now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you were breaking in between. I hardly could hear the question.
Okay, so let me restart with the question. One of our clients is in the BFSI sector, and the head HR has asked this question. She asks that organizations which are big in size and have good number of resources at hand can afford to make investments. How can developing organizations fight this situation? So any advice that you would want to share for organizations which are smaller in size, which are younger, how can they deal with the situation when their resources at hand for them is limited?
Sure. So I guess it again varies from industry to industry. If the organization is smaller in size, I'm sure, the risk is also smaller for them. And therefore, the challenges again fall, which are not what is required for a larger organization. Like I talked about 10,000 odd employees going remotely, and some procurements happening due to that. Maybe for a smaller organization, that may not be a challenge. And maybe their workforce is not, related to agent level population or something. So they may already having certain laptops, and there are many other ways these days, how through certain digital and through technology, you can make your work, completely remote. And I think my sector is still towards online. We did hear about some great examples in manufacturing, how where, there is not even a possibility to go offline and do work from home, they are able to manage so well. And it's not just about the size, but I think it's about how tech savvy and how much are we adoptive of any technology today, and how we can still translate our work and get it done through technology. I think is what the need, and this will exactly be the future of how we move forward for sure.
Sure. So thank you, Ms. Chetna. So yes, rightly said, it is adoption of technology. And I think Anshul wants to add a few points here.
Yes, I would just like to add on and build on what Chetna just said. I think this question was asked about investment. So I would just talk one more piece. I think investment is something which is dried up in the Indian industry. We are all talking about a bailout package from the government. As of now, it is not there. I think we have to learn to live with what all is in our hands and with us in our pockets. I think for organizations, 2, 3 things. First of all, try to identify what are the must-haves and nice-to-haves. Try to control your fixed expenses. Even if you have to spend something, I think from a HR perspective, there are a good amount of pieces which is done freely available on the net. Net is full of freebies as of now. Yani if you talk about anything, we want to do a virtual employee engagement or a lot of other pieces, even how you communicate, these are all free for 90 days, 6 months, at least on a shorter period of time. If there is a scenario wherein you are not able to take something up for free or you're not getting anything, these freebies, the next option is to go for deferred payments. I would say if there are certain must-haves which you have to spend on, go for deferred payments, and there would be partners and providers who would be willing to work with you. Everybody knows it's a tough time. Don't stop your work, but probably concentrate on the must-have and try to maximize the value you are able to leverage with the short cash you have. I think that is that's the point I would just like to add on what Chetna just said. In fact, Chetna also rightly said her example of Policy Bazaar while I was listening to her. So earlier there used to be a person who used to come to a house to conduct the entire physical medical test. So and right now everything has moved to the telemedical. So in fact, my own wife, she got her term life insurance today morning. So she was due for a medical test, but unfortunately the COVID happened. So day before yesterday, the telemedical happened. It was done through Policy Bazaar, Chetna. And today morning, I got the soft copy of my insurance. So probably if in Policy Bazaar, hypothetically was going to pay 1,000 rupees for somebody to come over, right now through all this, probably the 1,000 rupees, probably 200 rupees could have been only spent. So there's a good amount of innovation which is coming, and I think organization needs to do a lot of innovation in the way the businesses were being run or are being run currently.
Yes,
That's correct.
rightly said.
Can I add something to this? I
Oh,
think again from a manufacturing sector. So I think the way we handle, let's say I mentioned about when I was talking that the OEMs are providing good leadership in all these things. So they have much larger resources than any one of us. Then we are the tier ones, and then we go down to the tier two. So we are hand holding them, irrespective of the fact that they are smaller teams and all. So they can bank on us. We pass on the information, we pass on the SOPs, we pass on resources. So they don't want to reinvent the wheel themselves. So we are there to support them. Similarly, to support us, there are OEMs. So there's a complete ecosystem which is working, especially in manufacturing. And I'm sure in other sectors also this would be the case. But this is the time, I think, when we need to support each other, and we are doing it extremely well. So nobody is reinventing the wheel. I think the information network sharing is very, very seamlessly happening right now.
well, absolutely, and very aptly mentioned, the use of technology, and then as mentioned by Anshul, prioritization of tasks. And thirdly, Mr. Rajiv, as you've put in, that every industry itself is also acting as a larger community, and they are, helping each other. So there are several services for which you can reach out to bigger players within your industry and then look for what can be done together. So that's an interesting take on it. And, even when it comes to prioritization, even when it comes to must-haves, organizations have still to consider and understand that their people agenda should not become a nice-to-have. In fact, in these times, the people agenda is the must-have. And so that is where you can look for deferred payments and every different kind of relaxations in your agreements that you might have with your partners. So going forward, a question is directed to Mr. Ashish. Someone wants to ask that, even if you start your plans soon, you have a readiness program or a protocol in place. How will you resume sales? When Relaxo has a retail format of operations, then how would sales resume? So, Mr. Ashish, could you share a few points on this?
I don't think Ashish is there. He is busy in his management meeting.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you want, probably I can ask. I really am not representing Relaxo or Ashish, but probably I may ask if he is not there.
Sure, sure. So,
Probably me and Rajiv can jointly address this.
sure.
He represents manufacturing, so and probably both of us can do a little bit of a honors. I think it is not about how it would be sold. I think the question is very legitimate that even if the production starts, how would you sell? Because you need to have markets open, you need to have sellers availability, purchasers availability. But I would say with the MHA releasing guidelines for certain items that they could be e-commerce operations could be resumed. I think that gives a leeway to organizations like Relaxo that the e-commerce could take a load. I think that could be one of the strategies for starting of the plants for the footwear and apparel. I think at least that would give a kickstart to the economy. Uh, I think that is something which would be limited, but till the time the government or the MHA lifts some curves from say markets wherein we can go and we can purchase some items, the production really can't go full hog because you otherwise you would end up piling up your internal warehouses. I think that is my limited take. Of course, only acting because Ashish is not. The Rajiv, you want to add something?
Yeah, again, I'll pitch in. Let me give you an example that said the OEMs are now itching to start production. So about for the two-wheelers and the cars. So the question is, where are the buyers? So today, if you have read the news, they are now rethinking because most of the dealerships are not going to be open because they are in cities and most of the cities are in orange or the red zone. So they are having a double think on that. But the point is, when this lockdown happened, we were transitioning from BS4 to BS6. So that was a major shift happening in the automotive sector. So from 1st April onwards, only the BS6 vehicles can be sold and registered in the country. So there is a race going to be there now between the OEMs who can build more inventory of BS6, because earlier the pressure was to mitigate the inventory of BS4 vehicles, but now BS6. That is why they're in a hurry to at least create an inventory. So when normalcy hits, they should have enough vehicles to send across to the dealerships, and they should sell those vehicles. Another aspect which I am telling you from a consumer behavior point of view, what has been seen in China also, that the small cars will be now sold more because people are now going to shun shared mobility. Now that was a threat to the automotive sector, shared mobility. Now, because of this pandemic and this corona thing, people would rather have their own transport. They would rather have their sanitized vehicle with them than take a lift in a Uber or an Ola vehicle with somebody. So that shared mobility is going to come under a big question mark. And people would rather prefer to buy their own small car. So companies like, let's say, Maruti and Hyundai, who are the key players in the small car segment, are looking at that avenue to encash. So anything which has happened, I think, will result in some consumer behavior change. So this is what the automotive sector is looking at, that people will buy their personal vehicles now, not take buses or not take metros or not take other shared mobility platforms.
Okay, thank you. So actually we have a few, overlapping questions. So I'll try to put them together and then I would request each speaker to share their views on it. Well, the entire presentation and the discussion that we've been involved in has been around, how do you keep your workforce engaged, motivated, aligned during these times. However, listeners still want to know that beyond e-learnings, what employee engagement practices you are following currently within your organizations, and especially in the healthcare domain. So that obviously the last part would specifically be directed at Saras ma'am. However, everyone, even though we've shared a lot of insights right now, still if you had to pick up a couple of employee engagement activities that you're doing virtually, please do share the pointers now.
Okay, who's it directed to?
We can start with Saras ma'am and then Ms. Chetna and Mr. Rajiv, even you would
Yeah,
please
sure.
add points to it.
Sure.
Beyond e-learning, again, we will have to keep in mind the physical distancing, definitely. But there are in healthcare, definitely, we cannot be completely dependent on e-learning. We have to have hands-on trainings as well. Like a BLS training can never happen completely on e-learning. A fire training can never happen completely on e-learning. One has to physically lift the extinguisher to learn how to extinguish the fire. Basic life support training, as I was just mentioning, has to be practiced on a dummy. So these learnings will have to continue. E-learning, yes, has replaced 95% of the learnings, but some of the, especially in healthcare, we have to have hands-on trainings definitely, which will be done in smaller groups, definitely keeping in mind the physical distancing aspects. The employees' morale boosting exercises, morale boosting activities will have to be thought by all of us as HR leaders. That is very important, as everybody is mentioning. Normalcy will take a lot of time to come back, and till such time it does come back, anxiety, uncertainty is going to be there in the back of heads of all the employees. So continuous talking, continuous communication, continuous morale boosting has to happen. That's my take on it.
Sure. So communication is the key. So any like Mr. Rajiv, Ms. Chetna, if you could share what are the employee engagement related things that you're doing in your organizations, virtually, of course.
Oh,
So Chetna, you go first.
sure. Thank you, Rajiv. So yeah, so I think while we talked about learning, we talked about communication and many other ways how we can engage our employees. Even in my talk, I covered about the discipline and the coordination which is required. But of course, on a lighter note, it is not easy to sit at home and work for 8 hours or sometimes a little more as well, because everybody is stationed at home. And rightly said, I think it is good when you are working from home and not others. It was rightly said by Rajiv. But yes, when everybody is working from home and you continue to do so, and you don't know till when, as it continues extending. So what we have been doing, like for example, today we are hosting a town hall by our CEO. So, he'll be addressing everyone, sharing what is our next level of strategy and everything. But on day to day, we have certain time slots like the lunch hours, where we have kept, who's the best cook, and share your pictures and, some lighter moments around, what you're doing at home. In the evenings, we have kept virtual yoga sessions, which employ people who are interested in. They join in, for the live session, because internally in the office, we had a gym and a yoga instructor. So she comes and we have live session for people. Over weekends, again, some fun activities around, how your workstation looks like, or, something around fitness if you have done better, and, maybe your picture around how you're keeping yourself fit and motivated, sharing your best practices with others so that they can follow you, and, you become the leader, in doing some best practices. I think another way of how, we are keeping and socially involving our people on the physical distancing and not social distancing, to say. So yeah, these are few things which we've been working on, and I think it still has a good impact on how people are still at least participating.
Sure. So Mr. Rajiv, your views?
My views, of course, we are communicating excessively, I would say. We are making sure that we are constantly in touch with everyone in the organization. So the communication is playing a big part. And the things which give confidence to the employee is, let's say, one of the things is that we are doing a lot of CSR activities right now. So we are spread out across the country, and every place where we are based, a lot of CSR work is happening over there. So we collect a lot of information, pictures, news from there, and circulate it on our, let's say, to the network of our employees, so that everybody understands what the organization is doing. Because everybody wants to connect with an organization which is taking care of masses, taking care of people. So that gives them a positive engagement and a sense of purpose, kind of a thing. So that we do on a daily basis. So everybody knows what happened yesterday on the CSR front and what is the plan we are having. So
Sure.
that is what we're doing. Keeping people engaged. Let's say we are telling even the associates and their families that, okay, continue to make masks, because masks are going to be in shortage when the restart happens. So continue to make masks and distribute. Once they're there, we'll buy them from them and then distribute within our employee force. Not that we are not buying masks from the market, but it's a engagement. When we are telling them, you make masks. When you come back, bring those masks with you. You'll use it and give it to your friends. So everybody gets a benefit. We continue to celebrate birthdays, but now in e-birthday kind of a celebration. So that continues to happen. And let me share with you, our chairman made his leadership team play a game last Saturday, and where we had got engaged for about 2 hours. The entire families of everyone was involved, and he was leading, sitting at his home. So these are some of the activities which keep everybody engaged with the organization. But of course, the crux is communication. We keep engaged through
Certainly.
communication.
Well, one very interesting and right thing that you've just mentioned is, when you talk about asking the associates to make masks, it gives them a sense, a purpose to work, and they feel that they'll be contributing in a very major way to address the issue at hand. So, which is a great thing that give them a purpose, a sense of purpose to work towards. And secondly, it's interesting that you are still celebrating birthdays, but unfortunately, cake distribution gets restricted.
It's
So
all E. It's all
let's
E-based.
let's hope we get back to our offices soon.
Yes.
Okay, so one more interesting question, and because of the kind of industries that right now our speakers are from, someone from manufacturing, then we have Ms. Chetna from Policy Bazaar, then we have Ms. Saras from healthcare. This question would again have a different twist when Saras ma'am would want to answer it. So how do you promote and ensure customer centricity in unprecedented times? How do you motivate employees to own their duties during, when communication itself becomes a challenge? And obviously, when I say that this question would be entirely different when Saras ma'am has to answer it, is keeping in mind that the healthcare front runners are within our organization. So Saras ma'am, would you want to start with it? That how do you promote customer centricity at this time?
I think every business, every function, customer centricity is the prime thing. And in our case, it's the patient and the attendants. So we are very active on the social media, like with the MHA notification coming in place, which says that from 20th April, non-containment areas, healthcare organizations would be fully functional. So we've already started allaying the fears and the apprehensions in the mind of general people who had castrated the elective surgeries for the fear of catching some kind of infection, that they can come and get themselves operated for a knee surgery or a cataract surgery. The pregnant ladies were not coming for their antenatal checkups, regular ones. They were just sitting at home for the fear of catching unnecessary infections. So we are just telling them that everything is fine. You are absolutely safe when you come for your routine checkups, and we are doing it with the help of our social media as of now. So that's what it is. We're making people feel that yes, everything is safe for them. We have a very separate kind of passage, as I was telling you, and a lift and a corridor for the infected or suspected patients. So rest of the patients can freely come and get themselves checked. There's no issue with them.
And how are you motivating your doctors, nurses, the other healthcare workers? Because obviously even they would be worried about themselves contracting.
Certainly. All of them, whatever they're asking for is being provided to them, especially the roster which suits them, which gives them time to go home quarantine. The personal protective equipment they're asking for, this is being provided. We are not thinking about, sorry to say, the money part, but everything that gives them confidence and trust is being provided to them.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Rajiv, customer centricity in these unprecedented times.
Okay, let me just also share some of the healthcare experience. So maybe you're not aware, I was for 4 years the head of HR for Fortis Group. So
okay.
I've handled healthcare for 4 years. So what Saras is saying, I think it's a very, very critical time right now for people who are working in the hospitals, and of course the patients who are the patients. Okay, let me tell you, the patients are actually getting taken care of. It's the attendants which are more worrisome. They have all the worries on their head. Patient is inside the ward and he's being taken care of, so he's in his own world. So it's the attendants. So it's a tough task, and to keep the attendants informed. All they need is the right information. The basic issue with every attendant is कि हमें कुछ पता नहीं होता, हमें बताया नहीं जाता. So I think healthcare people are busy keeping the attendants happy. If the attendants are happy, I think then most of the job is done. The patients will get well, but the attendants have to be taken care of. On our side, see, we are mostly a B2B kind of an organization. So we give to businesses, we give to the OEMs. So we are, in fact, the OEMs are also very well connected with us. So they take every opportunity to give us information, ask information from us almost on a daily basis. So we actually don't feel that we are on a lockdown. The kind of information we are sharing with them and the kind of information we get from them, I think that is where, so whatever they ask for, if we are able to provide that, they are pretty happy, and basis our confidence, they are planning to reopen their plants. Because if we falter, the OEMs will not be able to open their plants at all. So the components come from us. Only then they'll be able to manufacture. So I think our level of customer centricity is pretty high for the OEMs, and basis our customer centricity, they can be confident of running their plants.
Sure, sure. So one more, another question, and maybe Ms. Chetna or I think even Anshul might be able to contribute here. One of the speakers is asking us that what are some frugal e-learning and PMS platforms which are available that could be adopted right away? Since small and medium enterprises cannot afford, biggies like SuccessFactors or Oracle. So e-learning platforms, PMS platforms, which are the more economically efficient ones for smaller businesses?
I think Chetna, you want to go first?
Sure, why not? So I think Anshul also mentioned about certain ways how there are some free platforms, especially on the e-learning side. I think there is My Academy, and there are many such platforms. We've currently tied up. I don't know. I need to check the name, but there are certain platforms who do not have too much bandwidth to have very heavy content. But for certain basic e-learning, yes, there are tools available in the market, and more of that. Today, like medium like YouTube and even doing video conferencing and all is the easiest, where you do not have to invest so much, and you continue to have your e-learning ways, and you can engage people virtually. If I understood the question right, I think it was more about how we can have e-learning online. So yes, today, for example, it is not very important to have a full-fledged LMS to have in place, but through certain ways how you can just go online, and maybe if not online, maybe you can create certain small pieces of YouTubes, and of course, make it available for your employees to go and watch there. So that's the easiest way how you can still connect and continue to have your e-learning or the learning journey for any company for now.
I would say Chetna rightly said that you don't need a fantastic suite of LMS, and the question rightly said you can't afford SAP or Oracles of the world, which one we should go for. So I would say it's a very basic thing. Learning can come in any form. You may have small LMSs, doesn't matter. The net right now is flooded with over knowledge. I would say over information. You go, you search, you would probably find thousands of tools available. So it's very difficult for any speaker in this platform to give you what sort of a tools you may use. But probably I think you can do some basic stuff. Such you would be flooded with a lot of pieces. That is one. Number two, I would give you an example of how we are internally doing one of a very small pieces. Right now, a lot of organizations and institutes, both education, academic, and the corporate world is doing a lot of webinars. So what we have done is internally, we have appointed one among us within the team who's keeping a track of all the webinars happening across the industry. Now, this person is releasing out every week a dashboard to the entire organization of ours, that what all webinars are going to happen. So anybody who wants to be a part of it, he or she can register over there. But the only point which we are ensuring is that the person who attends send back a sort of a one slider or a two slider, that what all learning he got, so that the others who never got a chance to attend that webinar can really do that. That also would be helpful for us going forward in the lockdown stretches, that probably if there is some client requirement which we may get as a client, as a consulting organization, if somebody wants to have a recheck in terms of who probably could be a subject matter expert in this, so probably we can go back and map it, see who attended that webinar, probably that person has some more insights. So I think world is full of so many things. I think you really can easily do that. Sujata, I think you can move to the next question.
Sure. So one of the questions also came that, maybe, like the lockdown is has been extended once. We do not know what would happen. Will there be a lockdown 3.0 to say? So what if once the lockdown is lifted, then and your employees are apprehensive to rejoin the workplace, how would you manage or remotivate them if they, and how would you deal with their fear in those times to come? So yes, one thing which has clearly been mentioned are your preparedness and the communication around how you've prepared so that they do not catch it. But maybe there could be a psychosis part of it. Then how would you deal with it?
I think some bit I would say was covered by Rajiv. If I have to answer it, I would say every organization cannot have an on and off switch. Right now, we don't have the luxury of a toggle switch being on and off. It has to be a staggered and a linear curve. We have to all implement it. So probably once the lockdown starts, so the essential component of an organization probably 10 to 20%, if you want, would start from day one of the lockdown, and then probably you would slowly ramp up. Now, how would you ramp up would depend on number of equations. How many of your employees are coming from their own personal vehicles? How many of them are there from shared public transport? How many of coming are from the local within the 5-kilometer radius? How many of are coming from a more than 5 kilometer of a radius? Then probably you could also have that how many of them are coming from probably a satellite town. If you have offices in Delhi, how many are coming from Noida? If you are having a plant in Manesar, how many are coming from Noida? So it would be a staggered lockdown exit. It won't be a toggle right now what we are able to predict. And Sujata, whoever has asked this question, I would say lockdown 3.0 is a high probability chance.
Sure. So, there's been a talk, although we've been talking about this in a very positive light when we say that, maybe the productivity rather has gone up. You see people being more efficient right now in the face of these difficult times. But then there's a flip side to it. There would be a lot of employees who are questioning the working hours. They are saying that they are putting in longer time than they usually would, and they might be questioning that is it survival of the fittest in these times. So how would you deal with such queries as HR professionals when someone approaches you with maybe a negative mindset? Then how do you tackle?
You want to ask this to me or any of the speakers?
No, I think I would request Ms. Chetna and Saras ma'am and then Mr. Rajiv to jump in last on this, and to see that how would you tackle when the long working hours or something that we've been saying as positive productivity being questioned by many.
Okay, so I can go. So largely, yes, of course, at this time, that's concerning. And yes, we do also, get such queries where, employees are stretching and, it's not just in call center side, even at the non-op side. But largely, I think I would still stick to the same philosophy of communication. It is very important to keep communicating, and they should know while you communicate what is and why do we need to support a certain long hours. So just for example, today in insurance, we're getting so many leads, and there are people who are inquiring. Therefore, the support from us is very important. And some people who have gone to their hometowns where we do not have network situations, and they do not, some people could not have systems to work on. So of course we also work on a compromised workforce. Therefore, with the kind of workforce which is available, we have to manage in that, and some may have to extend their working hours due to that. So I think it's more about being motivated, and at the same time, as I talked about, certain disciplines, while it is not sometimes just about technologies, but it is about the best coordination, the people who are motivated, who are working, and the discipline which we manage to have. So for example, in the ops side also, where people are stretching long hours, we're making sure that they're getting extra comp off if they have stretched for that long hours for that particular week, and ensuring they've been taken care, and at least we ensure that we speak to them. We have certain helplines where we have more constant touch, and do hear it from them that they're stressed, and of course measure their performance and the time which they have been giving in extras. So it is about two way. It is not just one way that they are doing it and we are not reciprocating and not helping them getting acknowledged, but of course together how we are working, and ensuring that they've been notified, they've been at least recognized for what they are doing, and at the same time the communication which tell them that why is the need for them to stretch as well.
Sure. So, I think when it comes to, I would rather ask the next question, especially to Saras ma'am and Rajiv sir. And let's, considering that this is the last question, given the paucity of time that we have. So, there have been talks about, salary cuts versus job losses, which is fine. And Saras ma'am, you have been saying that no, it's not about even that. Artemis is taking a different approach to it. But then how do you ensure to reward people in a certain different format, if not in monetary format? So if quickly you could share maybe one or two bullets on it, and then we could just have a last one-line statement from Mr. Rajiv on this. Thank you.
See, the people who are going an extra mile are being noticed, they are being monitored, and as all the rewards cannot be monetary, there have been, we will be rewarding them with the title of probably the employee of the month, or the most dependable employee, something of that kind, which gives the feeling of higher status to them. They get recognition and respect among the colleagues, and so that they keep working harder, and they keep getting self-motivated. That would be one. So that's what it is.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So Mr. Rajiv, just one last closing remark on this.
I'll just add here. See, we talk about the salary cuts and all. So I think that's a reality which is facing every organization in the face. The best way to handle this is, of course, not announce a decision. It is to announce after we have consulted with people. So I think that is where the organizations sometimes go wrong. They simply make an announcement that, okay, effective tomorrow or effective next month, this is going to happen. But I think if a communication has happened and you involve the stakeholders, because the reality is known to everyone. So we make sure that people understand why is this decision being taken. The explanation of why is very, very important. And that has to be owned by the people. So I'm sure every organization will be going through this process of rationalizing the salaries and all. It will happen. So we would tend to involve the people, involve the stakeholders into the decision-making process, so that people understand what is happening, why it's happening. So that is one part. Second, of course, people who are contributing beyond the call of duty right now in the organization, they definitely will be honored and compensated for that. Like I would rather add that word, compensated, because like I mentioned, in all our plants, there are emergency response teams who have not gone to their houses since March 22nd. They are staying put there. So they're living their life within the plants while we're taking care of them. But of course, it takes a lot of effort to stay away from the families and stay within the premises. So definitely, these are the heroes which we will laud once we open up. and we have plans for that. So they would be nicely compensated for the efforts they've done. And that's how we keep them motivated. People who are actually going out to distribute food items to the under our CSR banner, those people are going to be eulogized in the organization, and they will be highlighted at the right forums, and we'll take care of that. So I think this is known to people. People understand that that's how we operate. So we will recognize them when the time comes.
So thank you so much to all the speakers here for sharing your views about the practices followed within your organization, and then taking up so many questions that were put up by the viewers about, obviously the challenges that they themselves as HR professionals or probably business leaders as they are facing within the organization. So thank you so much for sharing your views. We will be having another webinar which is scheduled for next week. So Anshul, so our upcoming webinar would be on the topic of talent retention strategies during lockdown and hiring dynamics post the lockdown. So we would have speakers like Mr. Butul Dave, who's heading HR and IR in Cosmo Films Limited, Ms. Reema Garg, who's the CHRO for SMC Global Securities Limited, and Mr. Gaurav Gupta, who's head HR for Subros Limited. So this webinar is scheduled for 25th of April at 4 p.m. So I would request all the attendees to register for this webinar. You can drop us an email with your interest, and we will share the login details with you. And I would also request all the speakers to float information about this webinar within your network, because I know that these are some of the questions that the entire HR fraternity is currently grappling with. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you so much for your inputs.
And,
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, Saras. Thank you, Chetna. And thank you, Ashish. It was really wonderful for us to have you over here.
Thanks, Anshul. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye.